Forecaster Steve Boyle. Hope you all had a great summer. We have lots to talk about. We're going to look at the what happened with the summer. We're going to look at Hermine. We're going to look at the 15 to 20 day pattern. We're going to look at my official fall outlook, and then we're going to look at my preliminary thoughts on the winter. So let's get right into it. I'm going to keep you guys here on the satellite screen for a little bit while I talk about the summer. So, June was correct. If you look back at my last video, June was correct. We ended up slightly below to about average. July was wrong. We ended up well above average as far as temperatures. We ended up well below average for precipitation. The only thing that I slightly got right was we did get a lot of these short waves that came through, but they didn't have any precipitation, a lot of precipitation with them, nor did they have any cool air behind them. So we didn't really get anything to really come to fruition. So we didn't get a lot of severe weather this year. There was actually practically none. In the severe weather that we did get, it was very, very minor. It was not a good, it was, for those who are really into severe weather and tracking it, it was a really bad one for that. August was relatively right. I did mention how this August we could perhaps see some really good, we could perhaps see it being quite a bit above average, but I was wrong on the intensity because I said that we weren't going to get a lot of 90-degree days. I said that, because the averages are typically cooler by that time, which they are, we wouldn't see a lot of 90-degree days. Well, that was wrong. I also mentioned how this summer we were going to probably see about average precipitation. Well, that was wrong because we're in a pretty nasty drought. I mean, this is a horrific drought that we're in. I mean, we've got some really bad drought conditions in western New York. We got some pretty bad drought conditions here in southern New England, as well as the New York City metro area. So it is terrible. So, yeah, it's pretty bad. I mean, Boston saw 20 90-degree days. Some areas of New England saw even more than that. The Connecticut River Valley and Merrimack River Valley wouldn't be surprised if you neared maybe even 30 or 40. New York City only saw 19 because their average is 20. Philly saw 40, DC saw 50, but the big story is Atlanta. Their average is 36. They saw 73, which is really a lot for them. I wouldn't be surprised if that was a record, or at least near a record. Let me tell you, man, it was a hot summer. It was one of the hottest I can remember. So, at least we have a nice front that moved through, bringing us some nice, refreshing air coming in. It was really nice, really great. The thing that we're watching here now is Hermine. What is she gonna do? What the heck? Well, models are going all over the place. Same as with winter storms. Windshield wiper effect. You have to stick with the middle ground. And a lot of models are taking her out like this. I don't really buy that. I really don't buy that. I think she's going to take a track something like this. Okay? Or like this. Okay? Not that far. Actually, not that far east. But she's going to take a track something like this. And she is certainly going to be impacting, the mid-Atlantic, okay, and maybe even a little bit closer in like this, okay, but nevertheless, she is going to be impacting New Jersey, she's going to be impacting Long Island, and southern New England, and if you kind of look here, okay, well, I'll show you in a little bit. But in any case, this is the National Hurricane Center storm track. I agree with it completely. You're going to take a track something like this, and you're going to see the storm, you're going to see the storm coming up and almost stalling out for a while. It's not going to be doing too much of movement here from Sunday to Tuesday. It's going to be very, very slow moving. I would prepare now if you live from North Carolina up through the Jersey coast up to Long Island. This is going to be nasty. I don't care what the models are showing. This is going to be nasty. You're going to get 4 to 8 inches of rain, close to maybe, I wouldn't even be surprised if you get near 9 inches. You're going to get some nasty surf. You're going to get some nasty beach erosion and coastal flooding. So prepare now. It is not, you do not want to wait till the last minute, because when you do, that is when it's going to come in, and it's going to come in with a vengeance. I would suggest you keep very close tabs on the situation. Connecticut shoreline, Rhode Island coast, and southeastern Mass. Okay? I do think you're going to end up needing to prepare there. I am very confident at this point that it's New Jersey down through Virginia is going to come into some play here, and I am moderately confident that even southern New England is going to end up getting into some action here. Hurricane force winds, obviously, she's a hurricane right now. She's making landfall. These are the 58 mile an hour wind gusts or greater. Now, here is the situation. I agree with this. I think we are going to see up to 60 mile an hour wind gusts through most of southeastern Massachusetts, coastal Connecticut, coastal Rhode Island, New York City Metro, New Jersey coast, the Delmarva, and on down to Virginia Beach. I agree with this. I think we need to watch out into these areas. Okay? Now, tropical storm force winds. Okay? We need to watch out here. This, I think, as far as tropical storm force winds are concerned, I think we need to watch out anywhere from the Route 2 corridor. Hold on a minute. The Route 2 corridor along I-81. Okay? So this goes all the way down to D.C. and then comes out through North Carolina and back around. So if you live anywhere into this section, you need to watch out for tropical storm force winds. Areas closer to the coast here, 60 mile an hour winds. Okay, 60 mile an hour winds. So these areas you need to watch out for stronger winds. If you live into these areas, you need to watch out for up to, we'll say, 40 or 50 mile an hour winds. Further south you go, the higher the winds. Okay, up in here, breezy conditions, maybe up to 30 mile an hour winds, especially the southern parts. But I don't think we're going to be looking at anything too significant into central and northern New England. Nor are we going to be looking at anything significant central Pennsylvania, central Virginia, central New York State. Here's the rainfall. I disagree with this. I mean, it's okay, but I don't think it's doing any justice. Because folks in New Jersey, Long Island, these folks are going to get nasty rains, 4 to 8 inches. If you live into this area, 4 to 8 inches of rain. And even like areas outside of that, so we're looking at some of these areas in here. Okay, now it depends on your location. Okay, depends on your location. I think, coastal Connecticut, coastal Rhode Island, coastal Mass, coming back to north central Jersey, I think these areas in here, I think you could certainly, I think it's very possible that you see up to 5 inches of rain. And then I would say from, if you live in this hatched area in here, okay, I think if you live in this hatched area in here, I think it's generally 1 to 3. And then if you live into this area, it's about 4 to 8. Okay, it's gonna be nasty. Okay, especially as the closer you get to the coast. The further north you go, the lesser impacts you're going to get. Okay, now I'm going to show you the general pattern. So this is coming in for tomorrow afternoon, pretty much online for that, on track for that. That's coming in for Saturday, on track for that. There's no question about that. This is coming in for Sunday. Okay, now maybe it's a little bit further to the west than this. Okay, maybe or east. I mean, maybe it's somewhere in here. Maybe it's in here. Okay, but no matter what, you're still going to get significant rains and impacts into these regions. Significant rain, significant winds. You're going to get coastal flooding. But again, some of the models are taking it now like this. I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all. It's going to be something like this. Okay, is what I'm thinking. Okay, this might be a little bit too far to the east, but nevertheless, it's going to impact New Jersey, the Delmarva, and coastal Virginia. Watch out and prepare. Okay, now here comes for Monday morning. I do think. So here is, Hermine kind of spinning around. I do think that we are going to get a lot of squalls kind of getting thrown back to the north here. And I think we do have, because these squalls could perhaps contain relatively heavy downpours, I think the potentials of getting an inch or more is pretty good across a good chunk of Massachusetts once you go back to the I-81 corridor and into areas like these. And again, certainly once you get along the coast, no doubt. Okay. Now here's a GFS. I agree with a GFS solution a little bit better, because again, it kind of shows how heavy the precipitation is. And the reason why I agree with that, if we were talking about the winter, we would have a high pressure in here. We'd have our low pressure down in here, right? And we would have a cold injection of cold air, or we would have an injection of cold air, and then we would have our moisture streaming into the storm, or streaming in like this. So you'd have moisture streaming in, you have cold air coming in like this, and you would want to look for the area where those two meet up. Well, it's giving you, it's telling you where this is going to be, right in here. Okay, that is where the heaviest precipitate, or where you're going to get at least some good amounts, at least moderate amounts of precipitation. So I am pretty confident that these regions in here are going to get heavy amounts of rain. So that's what I'm thinking. And this is going to continue to swirl around for a few days, and it'll finally start lifting out by Thursday. By Wednesday or Thursday, it'll start lifting out, because we're going to have a high pressure developing, and what's happening here is we've got a flow, and and not only that, we've also got this little system that's going to start pushing down, so that's going to sort of force the system out. Okay, so here's the situation. Okay, notice how you're not really into the coastal regions here. You're not really into this flow of the high pressure. Okay, you're more in this sort of in-between section. You're in between the high and you're in between Hermine. So that's going to keep temperatures down from getting too excessive. Okay, so what ends up happening is for a few days you're going to actually stay relatively cool, or not too hot, while folks out into the Ohio River Valley are going to bake. Okay, now everyone gets hot by about the 8th, and this lasts through about the 15th, where we get very hot weather coming in, and let me tell you, it's going to get perhaps record-breaking. Again, I am not looking forward to that, but we have a front, which is very nice to see. Okay, we have a pretty good front coming in. There's a trough starting to build out in Eastern Asia, so that translates to a front or trough coming in by about between the 10th and the 13th, okay, here in the United States, okay. So that's why I am pretty confident about this trough and that this is going to come in. Now, the GFS is a little wetter. I don't know if I buy that, but we'll see what happens. But notice, here's our first front. There's another one situated behind it. So there could be several shots of cool air, okay? And then this is a little bit further down the line. This is the 13th, so we're looking at about another 4 or 5 days after that. Another front comes in, okay? So what happens here is we get periods of warm and periods of cold towards the mid to late month. Or not cold, but average. So periods of above average and periods below average. Now remember, by this time, averages across the Northeast in general are anywhere between, we'll say, in northern New England, low 60s to the southern parts of the mid-Atlantic, we'll say upper 70s, okay, depending on your location. Here into southern New England, it's the mid-70s, okay? So, so depending on your location, upper 70s or low 80s, and maybe even into some of these areas in here, maybe even the mid-80s, is still above average, okay? So you're still going to be looking at above average conditions by the time we head into this time frame. But the difference is we're going to be cooling down overnight, and not only that, we have several fronts that look to be forming and moving through, so it's not going to be long-lasting, but it's still going to be enough to keep departures above average. So this is September temperatures, so now we're getting into my fall outlook here. So, oh, and before we continue here, just to give you the general September outlook here. 1st to the 8th, we have this right now. It's beautiful. This cool Canadian high with Hermine coming in towards the end of the period, affecting affecting the Mid-Atlantic and perhaps parts of southern New England. We'll say the 8th through the 15th, it is going to be hot, it is going to be humid, and it is going to be nasty. Near records, perhaps in some areas. We'll say from mid-month to the end of the month, we are going to be looking at periods of warm, but not like what we're going to be seeing in about a week or so. But it's going to be warm for this time of the year by that time, and it's also but we'll also see some pretty nice nights as well. So it'll still be above average. It's still not going to be cold or maybe even fall-like. It'll be more early fall-like by that time, or late summer-like, and we'll start to see a little bit of improvement as far as heat is concerned. But it's going to take a little while for things to start to iron out. So, so from the end of September through October, near to slightly above average. So here is September, well above average. Obviously, that's the big story. Notice there's this +4, and that's because these areas are not going to be impacted by by Hermine. Okay, and remember, the upper level low associated with Hermine is going to be sticking around for several days after the rains actually happen. So you're not going to be getting that hot into these regions. You're going to be probably staying, into the lower 80s, while areas back out in here I mean, you're going to be baking into the upper 70s, maybe, or excuse me, upper 80s, maybe even lower 90s in some of these regions, especially into the urban areas, maybe even into the, low to mid 90s. Okay, so, I mean, it's going to get hot. Okay, and that heat will certainly spread east by, like I said, about by the time we hit about the 8th. Okay, then it gets relieved. But again, it's going to be hot. Also, perhaps some warm weather out into the desert southwest. Here's precipitation. I had to take precipitation up because, I mean, these regions in here, okay, they're going to get 4 to 8 inches of rain, and that is practically a month's worth of rain into these regions. I even brought about normal conditions along the Connecticut coast up to Cape Cod and the islands in Long Island and even the New York City metro area, because I think you're going to get about 2 to 4, maybe even 5 inches into these regions. I do think we're going to get some good beneficial rains here. I kept the below normal in here, but I think if things work out the way I think they will, we'll at least get a little bit of a dent into the drought, but maybe not enough into some areas to alleviate it, but it will at least put a little dent and sort of pave the way maybe for future situations. Okay. But I just had to take it up above normal for the Delmarva, the Virginia coast, and areas like that, because it's just going to be too much rain. It's too much rain to put below normal there, or even normal. So that's what I did here, and, we'll see what happens. I may even end up cutting off some of this in here as well, based upon what might happen as far as some of these storm systems towards the latter part of September. We'll see what happens. Above normal precipitation into the Four Corners region, above normal into the Pac Northwest, and we've got a pretty nasty drought here into California that is just going to continue for a good period of time. So here's October. My concern is that this high, okay, the high that we're seeing down here, may be a little too stubborn. So what'll end up happening is these +2s will come back here, these +1s will come back here. But seeing what some of the models are indicating for the end of September, I think this high will start moving to the west. Okay, so I do think that we're going to end up seeing this high centered somewhere in here, and then we're certainly going to be talking about some warmer than average conditions into the Central Plains, this is kind of getting ready for what's about to come for the winter. By mid to late October, we should see our high centered somewhere in here, and we should see our warmer weather somewhere in here. Okay, we may even start seeing things starting to cool down somewhere into here, and even up into here. Okay, and sometimes the high will sort of center like this. Okay, it depends on how broad the highs are. But I also think at times the high could maybe even shift towards the north. It'll shift towards the west. But overall, it'll be further to the east than where it is for September. Okay. Now, here's precipitation. The other thing is I think we're going to start seeing our storm track that is going to start developing here. Now, I'm keeping the northeast in average, equal chances of below or above, because I could see how, things sort of diminish as they work their way north and we don't end up seeing any rain. But I could also see how we get some of these October nor'easters. Sometimes October is very notorious for these wet nor'easters. And I think it's very possible that we could get at least a couple of these that come up and bring us some really beneficial rains in October. Okay, so and this is sort of paving the way for the pattern that we might see towards the winter. Here is our below average conditions across the desert Southwest. This is going to probably continue for a while. So overall for the fall, beginning of September going to be pretty nice, with Hermine giving us some beneficial rains. Then from the latter parts of the beginning of September through mid-September, we're going to see well above average temperatures, near record conditions. By the end of September through October, we'll see near to slightly above average temperatures. We'll have to watch out. We'll have to see just how warm it does get, but I think that the temperatures will probably be closer to the upper 70s and lower 80s rather than a mid to upper 80s. Okay, so that's what I'm thinking from the end of September through the beginning of October. Sometime towards the middle to the end of October, we should see a pattern change. Okay, we should see a pattern change, and this will start paving the way for the pattern that we're going to see from the late fall through the winter. Okay, so November should be near to below normal as far as temperatures are concerned. Near to above normal as far as precip goes. Okay, so that is my fall outlook. I may make some minor tweaks and changes the end of the month. Now, winter. It's going to be a weak La Nina winter. Okay, weak La Nina winter. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you what weak La Nina winters look like. So this is temperatures. Notice the core of the cold is up, centered into the northern plains. Notice how a lot of the country, though, is cool. However, if you notice, some of these areas in here could end up being a bit above average as far as temperature, because you can see they're closer to average. Okay, but I do think that we're going to be looking at cooler than average temperatures across a good chunk of the country. But the core of the cool will be into the northern plains. Now, here is the situation as far as precipitation. Notice it's very difficult, but you can generally see, you generally have, it's wetter than normal up here, and it's drier than normal down here. Okay? That is the general scenario when it comes in terms of weak La Ninas. Okay, you get a relatively dry southern stream and a relatively active northern stream. So you end up getting more precipitation up north, less precipitation down south, and that's the general theme as far as weak La Ninas. Now, specifically this year, we are going to see a central-based La Nina, okay? A Central Pacific La Nina, meaning a weak La Nina. So it's going to be central-based, but it's also going to be a weak La Nina. So what that means is that there's the ENSO region. The ENSO region is basically from the coast of South America, about 500 to 600 miles to the west of Central America. Central based is basically the central part to the end part of the ENSO region, where you get the core of the cold. Even though the whole entire ENSO region is cool for La Ninas, where the core will dictate what type of pattern we could get. the exact pattern. And it looks like we're going to get a weak La Nina that is central based. Okay, so I have two. Now I'm putting up 4 fingers here on purpose because remember, when you're looking at winter forecasts, you have temperature and precipitation. So I have 2 packages of analogs here that I'm going to show you. I like this first one a little better, but also the second one gives you some ideas on what I'm thinking as well. So this is as far as temperatures. I love how in these analogs, the core of the cold was up into the northern plains. Okay. By the way, some of the years I'm using, the big years here, 1950, 1951, 1970, 1971, 83, 84, and the really big ones, 95, 96, and 2010, 2011. Okay, now some people are like, oh, why are you using those? Those were winters where it was like really snowy and stuff. Well, I didn't do it because of that. What I did was I literally looked at all of the La Nina winters, and I looked at which ones, as far as weak La Ninas, and I even looked at some of the moderate ones, okay? Because 2010 was barely moderate, okay? Barely moderate. I mean, it barely went into the moderate zone, okay? So, but if you look at the ENSO region, these are the winters where you had the ENSO region where the waters were the coldest in the Central Pacific, okay? That was where the waters were the coldest, okay? And that's what these are the years, okay? So notice practically you have the extreme northern parts of the northern plains where you have the cold weather, okay, the core of the cold. Not to say that there's not going to be any cold shots, because let me tell you, going to be colder than last winter, okay? It will be colder than last winter too. But it's also going to be warmer than average into the desert southwest, okay? Precipitation, there are 4 areas as far as precipitation, okay? We have area 1, area 2, hold on. We have area 1, we have area 2, I would even go like area 3, and then area 4. 4 areas. Area 1 will be wet. Then we have area 1, 2, and 3 for snow. Okay, so area 1 is going to be wet. I could see it maybe drying out a little bit towards the end, but for the most part, the Pacific Northwest is going to be wet. Area 1 will be where so we're talking higher than normal snowfall for good chunk of Montana. We're talking Idaho, Utah. I mean, we're talking Wyoming. So the Northern Rockies, okay? Then the Great Lakes, okay? The Great Lakes is also going to see some pretty good snows this year. I think we could get some pretty good lake effects this year, okay? Area number 3 is the other area, okay? The Northeast. Okay, now I don't know how strong the storms are going to be. I don't even know how high above normal the snowfall is going to be. But I do think we're going to get at least slightly above normal snowfall this year. Okay, so certainly plan on more snow than last year. Okay, and certainly plan on a colder winter than last year. Okay, now something that also is going to be pretty well known this year is going to be the dry weather down south. And that's because the northern stream is going to be carrying all the storms and precipitation, while the southern stream is going to be very dry. It's going to be very dry. It's going to be very inactive. Okay, so it'll be very dry down south. Okay. Now, here's a second package of analogs. I focused a little bit more on 95 and 2010, but we also have 58, 59. We do have 83 and 84, but we also have 98 and 99. And the reason why I did that was because of the PDO going on up into the going on here across the Pacific. There's some questions on how that's going to impact the pattern here. So if you notice, it's a little warmer into the Pac Northwest, and I could see how this ends up warming up a little bit here into the how we warm up a little bit towards the end of the winter. The only thing I don't like about these this package of analogs is that it's colder across the Ohio River Valley. I don't see that happening. I think we're going to be looking at the core of the cold and still into the northern plains. Okay, but the general pattern of you have this ridge here and this trough here, I think is still pretty good. Precipitation, I like this as well, because you can still see we've got an active northern stream and an inactive southern stream. Okay, so this is where all the moisture is going to end up being sent, is across the north. Okay, and you can still see you've got, this area being 1. You can kind of see that this area is area number 2, and you can also clearly see this is area number 3, where you have for snow. And then, of course, you have this area for wetness. So this is area, so this is wet. This is area 1 for snow, area 2 for snow, and area 3 for snow. And then, of course, you got the dry weather going on into the south. Okay, so that's my general thoughts for the winter. What we're going to do here is the end of the month. I'll I'll kind of fine-tune my fall forecast, and then I'll also have some maps for you as far as my thoughts on the winter. But for now, this is what I'm thinking. So, Northeast, expect much cooler than last winter and a little bit snowier than last winter. Now, again, specifics of, this area is going to get more than this area of the Northeast or this part, we can't get into that yet. Okay, it's too early in the game. But for now, I think the whole Northeast is in fair game for above average snowfall this year. But also the Great Lakes, okay, the Great Lakes, and also the Northern Rockies, okay, and then the Pac Northwest above average rainfall, okay. So that's generally what it's looking like. So slightly below average temperatures and above average precipitation. How much below and how much above average for snowfall, we can't say right now. But I can tell you the core of the cold will be across the northern plains. Okay, I'm pretty confident about that. Will there be a drought that develops down south? I'm not sure yet. We'll have to see as time moves on. But that's what some of the analogs are perhaps indicating. So we'll see what happens. But in any case, that is what I'm thinking. And we're going to be back at the end of the month. And but until then, you have a great rest of the month, and we'll see you at the end of the month.